I want to start this week with a brief apology. Those regular listeners may have noticed that our initial episode 17 was actually a repeat of episode 16 and not the excellent chat with Joanne Smith. We've rectified that now, and we'd highly recommend hearing Joanne's incredible story from chronic pain to ultra runner with chronic pain to ultra runner now without chronic pain, and much insight learning along the way. It's a truly inspiring personal journey. But on to this week's interview. So this week, I speak to Ivo Gormley, founder of GoodGym. Ivo is one of those rare people who not only reflects deeply on the issues in life, but then takes action. What we would call a truly compassionate approach. GoodGym, as you will hear, is Ivo's idea to combine being active and moving with doing good. Exercise with a purpose. He sees it as a part of the antidote to modern city living, where you can be surrounded by people and yet feel totally alone. Imaginative and creative ways to generate opportunities to address these wider terms of health are central to what we believe at Peak Health Coaching. And we hope, as always, this conversation gets you thinking. Hello, and it's a real treat today. I'm joined by Ivo Gormley, someone who we at Peak Health Coaching have really admired, and the energy he puts into the things he does is absolutely fantastic. So Ivo is a UK social entrepreneur, an anthropologist and filmmaker by background, but really well known for being the founder of GoodGym, which now has 26,000 members, operates from close to 70 sites across the UK and England. So Ivo, welcome.
Great to be here speaking to you, Ollie.
I've taken part in some GoodGym missions, but our audience would love to hear a little bit more from you, the founder. Tell us a little bit about GoodGym and why you set it up.
I suppose, like many entrepreneurs in general, it began as a solution to my own problem. I used to play basketball, and that was a big part of my life, and having that kind of social context and being on a part of a group of people who did that thing was important. And when I didn't have a team anymore, wasn't playing, my friends started saying I should go to the gym, and I didn't like that idea of just this quite isolated form of exercise where you're doing something just for yourself. And so I started running to deliver the newspaper to an older neighbour, basically. And it was, I knew about him through a friend. He was pretty much housebound at that stage. He had various long-term conditions, and so I would run around and bring in the Sun newspaper, go around, drop it off, and we'd have a bit of a chat. And over years, that was a really positive part of my life. It was doing that bit of exercise to get there. He was always very encouraging and told me to run further and faster. For him, it was someone visiting him on a day where he wouldn't otherwise see any other people. And it just seemed to make sense. And it also seemed to tap into, something that humans have always done, right? It's only in the 20th century that we sort of invented this idea of exercise for its own sake. Right? It would have been the case that just to exist, we would have had to, do some farming or climb up trees to get honey, or your life just to exist. There would be a significant amount of physical exertion that would keep us in good shape, and we've sort of ironed that out of our lives now. So I suppose GoodGym is trying to recreate that aspect of our exercise being literally functional. It achieves a goal that is bigger, and we're particularly focused on achieving some kind of community outcome or something that helps other people. So since then, I suppose around 15 years ago, I've just been trying to make it easier for people to combine their exercise with helping their community. So now we continue to support isolated older people with deliveries or basic household and garden tasks. And we also support community organizations with any kind of unskilled practical work. So a lot of shifting food at food banks, paving paths, shifting earth around for community gardens, anything that is for the good of the public. We sort of approach it as if it's a workout.
I love that. It's brilliant. I love the fact you started with a personal problem yourself. And did you start out, when you were delivering the newspaper to this gentleman, did the idea come to you gradually, or had you already had a bit of an idea this is something you wanted to do?
Initially, it was just for me, and then after a couple of years, I was thinking, this has actually really got me to start enjoying running. It's got me to to look forward to it as a sort of really great part of my week. So if it's worked for me, maybe it could work for other people too. And then slowly, just in my spare time and weekends, started trying to get other people to do the same thing. And then I think around 2013, I was able to then sort of take the plunge, and it felt more important than anything else I was working on. And so I started doing it full time.
Brilliant. And this is now your main job, running GoodGym and growing it and seeing how far you can extend it.
Yes, over 10 years now, I have been doing just focusing on this, helping to grow it, and I'm lucky to work with 10 or so colleagues, and then lots of people in cities all over the UK to help make it happen. I think we're trying to be as efficient as we can, trying to really understand what are the barriers to people doing this. I think people generally would like to do a bit more exercise. They would generally like to do a little bit more to help your community where you live. So how do we make this, the sort of a really prominent, easy to get involved with activity? And I think we're not just, I think it's very interesting with sports participation at the moment, or physical activity participation, that doesn't seem to be growing. But we do have, I think, actually quite good provision these days with things like the brilliant expansion of Parkrun and various other free to access activities, but yet it's still we're still not at the levels that we want to be in terms of physical activity. So I think there are some really bigger picture factors that are going on that are preventing us from being as active as we want to be.
Well, and I love that bit. You've written about that. I've heard you talk about that sort of sense of purpose bit, which you're talking about there, that actually often for many people, that's more of a motivator than just getting fit. So, did that sort of evolve for you, or did you sort of discover that through seeing how it worked well for other people? Because that's such a powerful sort of shift in the dynamic of why you're doing your exercise, isn't it?
Partly it is about my own, but I find it much easier to commit to something if there is something else going on around it, right? And I think generally we find that if people aren't going to notice if you turn up or not, your motivation decreases massively. Whereas if there's like 10 of us thinking like, oh, that's I'm really looking forward to seeing Ollie on Thursday, then you're just more likely to be there. And I think that was the big sort of clicking point, if there was one, with GoodGym, was when we started doing weekly sessions. You started seeing this really lovely community form around it, where people were catching up with each other in a way that you might at the pub. And it's a very simple thing, and happens in loads of other types of organization as well. But you've built these positive relationships with people, and then you catch up with them, and people quite often go and do other things, like they'll all sign up to a race together, or walk up Snowdon, or go and do other nice things, celebrate each other's birthdays, etc. But I think if you're the more that you can connect your physical activity to some kind of positive social context, I'm sure that's going to increase the likelihood that you'll stick at it. Just people noticing that you're doing this great thing, and I think you see that in all sorts of different contexts in different sports, and I think you have now. I think why High Rocks is big at the moment is because there was really no bigger picture social context for people who go to the gym. So it was quite an internal thing. And High Rocks was this thing where you could potentially, tell your friends that you're training for this thing. And then you could invite your friends to come and watch you, and there'd be other people that you're going with. So I think, we're seeing it emerge in different ways. And obviously there's a massive boom in running, which is sort of explicitly social. And I think really exciting development. It's explicitly social. This is like, this is you are doing this to enjoy it, not because one day you might qualify for the regional heats of the something or other. It's like this is it's. I think they're exciting things changing slightly as people are trying to address that kind of, yes, actually, it doesn't matter if you shave 5 seconds off your time. The important thing is the participation and the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel that someone getting older, and all my times are getting slower anyway, Ivo, if I do anything timed. But I'm a runner myself, and I know that accountability of having a running partner and the conversations you have and the connections you make are fantastic. I love the way you've really thought about building that into what you do. And the other thing I really love is the fact you call the older people, when people do visit them, you call them the coaches. Tell me a bit about that. What's underlying that?
I mean, that came from my original, relationship with Terry, and trying to acknowledge, I suppose, that this is, good for both of us. It isn't this, how the charity sector works is, you have volunteers and beneficiaries, right? And the beneficiary needs the help, and they are the vulnerable person, and they need an intervention. And someone comes and delivers an intervention. In this case, a volunteer comes in who is extremely capable and their life is perfect. There's obviously a characterization of it. They go and deliver an intervention and then go off again. And I think, so much of the best stuff that happens is kind of limited by that model. And it doesn't acknowledge that contribution is one of the best things that you can do for your own well-being, right? And at times, yes, there's going to be you're going to be supporting that older person, and the way that you listen and the way that you ask questions and the way that you tell stories is going to help that older person. But it's very likely that in doing that, that's also helping you. So I think we're really trying to slightly disrupt that. And to say, actually, this is like any human relationship, it's mutually beneficial, and it's really important to recognize that.
Love that. I really love that. I love the fact that it's recognizing the value of feeling like you can participate. I think there's so much overlap with what we do with peer support at NHS. I think, recognizing the value of being able to participate, not always feeling like things are being done to you, or, like you say, you're a passive recipient of somebody else's, benevolence, like you say, but actually to be able to have a part to play and to be able to contribute something back. That's really clever, I think.
We explain that to the older people. It is their responsibility to help keep that person motivated. They don't necessarily need to have any particular qualifications. I mean, it'd be great if they did do some coaching in how to coach. But I think we do get that they've got a part to play in keeping that person encouraged and motivated and sort of sharing their wisdom.
And I think that how do you do that? Sorry, Ivo, I interrupt, but how do you do that? That's so fascinating, because I know about recruiting the members and the runners, and like you say, doing the safety checks so that the intervention is all safe. But I knew less about how you encourage people being visited to play a part as well. Tell me a bit more about that.
All of the older people that we work with will be referred to us through an organisation that works with them professionally. Right. So it's Adult Social Care, Age UK, and Red Cross, sort of and lots of brilliant smaller local organisations who will refer to us. And we'll have varying levels of understanding of what it is that we're sort of providing, offering. So some people will just be like, oh yeah, someone's going to come round. And some people are, actually quite excited about that idea of, helping someone else. So we talk them through on the phone, the idea of what this is all about. And they will, agree to, behaving, I suppose to our code of conduct, and we'll also send them a certificate that says they are the coach of the good gymmer that is visiting them.
Certified good gym coach.
Yeah. And so some people are really into that, and
Yes.
in some places it's not something that ends up being part of how they consider the relationship. I think hopefully in all cases it at least sets up that this is not it's not that sort of recipient beneficiary thing. There are some expectations, but it's definitely like it's experienced in quite a varied way.
Yeah, that's great. That was really great. And because I mean, you've also talked a lot about how loneliness is such an important health factor as well. So, and particularly in cities, haven't you? I know you're a London resident, and
Yeah.
you're particularly interested in how we can reverse the kind of isolation that people feel, even though they're living in a busy city. Very often, so many of us are just completely isolated with people around us.
There just is huge opportunity to build a more sort of participatory culture. I think that there's also that kind of bystander effect of, as soon as the person in front of you ignores something, you ignore it too, and how we might be able to shift that a little bit. I think that and it's the big shift that's happened in the last 15 years is, there was so much about loneliness and isolation of older people when I started working on this, and now it's all about the under 25s.
Yeah.
So the 16 to 25s most likely to be lonely. About a third of them feeling lonely often. So it's a really big shift in where the problem is. And I think what's so particularly terrifying is that period of life, right, 16 to 25, is likely to be the period where it's least possible to avoid interacting with other people, right? You're likely to be in a first job, in some kind of education. You're likely to be living in a flat share. You're likely to be there are so many factors. Of course, there are still people that are living alone or living at home. But even then, right, it's unlike older age where it's possible that you're living on your own and are quite disconnected and don't have that daily interaction. At that age, you're so likely to be interacting with people, and yet you're the most likely to be lonely. And I think this is just a real warning sign about what are the factors that have enabled that to be possible, when we are so innately social, when we know that interacting with other human beings in a positive and meaningful way is the most likely to make us happy. And even when we think about sort of our aspirations, or we think about what we want to spend our time on, if we had all the time in the world, we are so likely to answer that you want to be with friends, with family, doing something that experiencing some sort of positive shared experience. And yet we are just choosing not to do that. We are choosing to do these isolating activities, and I think it's a major societal shift. If you look at the data on loneliness, it's actually not showing that it's getting any worse. So if you look at Pamela Coulter's research, which is excellent, she's actually very alarmist. She says, look, this is actually people have worried about this for a long time, and the evidence doesn't show that it's getting a lot worse. However, I think we are going to see a fundamental change if the current lack of sort of interaction and increased screen time continues to stay the same.
So we're sort of, if I got you right, we're sort of unlearning the skills of being social with each other at that formative stage. So and I know this is an area you're really interested in at GoodGym, isn't it? Is around how do you I guess, teach people those social skills? How do you engage people? Is it a big drive for you at that younger age now, 16 to 25? Is that right?
18 to 25 for us, in that
18 to
we are
25.
still, we don't have about under 18s involved, just
Yeah.
because of the various
Gotcha.
risks involved in a lot of the projects that we're working on.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's it's interesting because I mean, I think these are inbuilt skills that we have. Like, we are, if you watch kids playing, we have incredible ability to build those connections and to enjoy each other's company contribution. So I think it's more maintaining those rather than sort of teaching those skills.
Gotcha.
I think what's
So
good about
creating the
GoodGym,
opportunity for it to happen, right?
yeah, exactly. And it's just it's also the little bit dealing with a slightly messy, slightly tricky situation together. Me and you in Sheffield had to pull down some dead hops from the roof of a pork cabin in a community garden. Right,
Yeah.
it was a sort of unusual task to do. Right, we met at a conference, and then we went for a run and pulled some dead hops from the roof of a pork cabin in a community garden.
I remember it well. Yeah.
In Leeds. And it was that I think it wasn't perfect. It wasn't particularly obvious what we needed to do, but we needed to work out how to do it together. I think that a small challenge like that is such an amazing opportunity for us to build trust and connection. Someone's got to hold the ladder while the other person climbs up it. Someone's got to kind of find out where a rake or something that would help us to get that. So you've got this kind of because we are collaborating on something that we both think is generally a good idea. We've got this amazing opportunity to build trust and connection. And I think as work becomes increasingly abstract or disconnected from the output or the outcome, we are losing that opportunity to build that connection and trust. And in our workplaces often, and then in our leisure time, we are with increasing screen time and increasingly sort of individualized activity, we are we are losing opportunities to sort of tackle those challenges together. And I think across the board, as we sort of generally design out any kind of friction from the processes that we deal with, we are losing these sort of micro opportunities for connection, such as just saying hello to the person behind you in the supermarket queue when you pass them that triangle thing that you put on the behind your food before the next person comes along or whatever. But you might say hello, right? You might, and it's not going to change the world, but it's just like we're getting rid of so many of those little interactions that you get rid of the ticket office at the train station, you get rid of the person who checks your ticket, who you might say, when are we, what time does it arrive at, wherever. We're removing so many of these micro opportunities for just a positive human interaction.
So I love that. So that's what that's I guess an essence of what you're doing. You're creating opportunities, not necessarily formally teaching people anything new. You're just assuming that it'll happen if the opportunities are there and there's interactions that perhaps because we're working alone, we're exercising alone, we're doing everything very individually. We're maybe worried about how many followers and likes we've got, but it's all very sort of boundaried and discreet. I think there's a lot of overlaps actually with what we're trying to do, I think, generally with health coaching, actually, because I guess we are to some degree teaching people purposefully some skills about how do you inquire about how someone's going with their health, whether it's in a NHS setting or a workplace. But I really appreciate how what you're setting up it's just a very simple return to a more socialized context, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think this happens in loads of contexts. It's not like we're completely unique. I think you just give people some of those conditions, and people make it happen. Right? It's what we do. Is we make the best of a situation, and we work out how to do it, and we develop that meaningful shared purpose.
Yes.
And so, I think like so many, running groups or things like park run, they enable people to make that connection, and then quite often take some initiative, like organizing a extra session or a trip or whatever. We need to really look at that on the bigger picture when we're designing any kind of service. What in the way, whenever we think about efficiency, are we actually designing out the sort of humanity and the opportunity for the development of community?
So I'm fascinated by that, because I am interested in like whether, this should be the role of some, should this be just what governments do? Should it be what the NHS does? You're an organization, you're an entrepreneur, you've seen an idea, you're making it happen, you've got energy and drive. Should this be a core part of what the kind of official statutory bodies do you think?
It's interesting. I mean, yes, short answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I think it should be a key component of any, commercial or government service delivery.
Yeah.
Is that from a library to the NHS? And, there are really exciting things such as, the expert patient type programs, or where people are able to
social prescribing, I guess.
Social prescribing, yes. But where like as a patient or a kind of recipient of the service, you are recognized as someone who also has some kind of value to provide to improving that service or supporting the next person.
That's key. I think that often gets lost, actually, doesn't it? The value of giving people the opportunity to play a role. I think that's really important.
Exactly. So, just like, would you like, if every person who goes through that thing is offered the opportunity, would you like to, write a personal welcome to the next person who's going to do it with a bit of your advice?
Yes.
Would you like to, that they can be quite small things, and they might lead to nothing, or they might lead to brilliant friendships.
Yes.
But if you were to go through I think for a good example of something, like if you were to design in 5 opportunities where it would just set up an expectation that me and you would have a conversation because we're going through the same service. I mean, like the example I quite often use is the having kids. I did both the NHS antenatal classes, and I did the NCT ones, which National Childbirth Trust, which is which is a private and expensive service, and they both had the same sort of information, but the main difference was with the NCT one was that you had to basically opt out of being in a WhatsApp group, and it very strongly set up the idea that the people in that group would support each other through the process of childbirth, and you would have to be very much sort of opt out of being included in lots of messages about this. And it works amazingly well. It was an NHS one did not do that. It was probably much better at respecting privacy and GDPR stuff, but there were no details shared between anyone. But there was also such a brilliant range of people in that in the NHS antenatal classes in Whitechapel. It was obviously it was really wide ranging demographics, and an amazing opportunity from the government's point of view, or local authorities' point of view, of creating a really diverse mutual support group. So that feels like such a big opportunity to create these to share knowledge between this group of people, and to invite everyone into supporting each other through this process. And that it could have been very powerful. So it's a very long-winded way of saying, but basically, just set up that expectation in your design of the service that it will be okay for people to share their contact details, and to do it on their own terms is good. but
Yes.
but do set that expectation. You've got the power and the design of it to say, hey, now Ollie, you're going to meet this person who's just found out that they're they are potentially got this condition, or potentially going to be having a baby, or potentially going to be getting a library book for the first time. What would you say to that person? And you may get on like a house on fire. You may not, well, nothing might happen. But if we build in those opportunities in every service, I think that would significantly change the world.
I love that different shift of mindset, isn't it? It's purposely looking for it. And there's a lot of overlap in health coaching, actually. I guess one of the core principles is that you believe that people are resourceful, and you look for them to have an opportunity to play more of a role in their own health, I guess. But then there's also peer support, I think, which is growing a lot in the NHS. And where I particularly know in the areas of type 2 diabetes and chronic pain, where you have peers, who may be a little bit further down the line, helping people to sort of find their own journey. But again, with that context of not telling them what they should do, or be like me, but just, have you thought about this? How's that going? A bit of encouragement, maybe a bit of advice here and there. But yeah, no, I like that dynamic. But yeah, it was interesting what you said about the privacy bit, though, because I do worry about whether we've got a little bit, overly paranoid about privacy and GDPR and so on. And that, I mean, have you ever seen it go wrong? You have these DBS safety checks. Does it ever worry you that perhaps by creating these contexts that sometimes there could be something that would go wrong? Have you ever had stuff go wrong in GoodGym?
I mean, touch wood, we haven't had, and we've had nothing that has been a, I suppose major incident that's been. We do have, minor issues often, and they will be potentially just different social norms, people not adhering to the code of conduct on both sides. We will have issues around gender fairly regularly, of just people having different ideas of I suppose or using gender stereotypes in ways that other people don't feel comfortable with. It's potentially coming from intergenerational with just different experiences and different education. But generally, I think people work it out. I think it's that's what we try to rely on. I suppose we do the background checks, and we have the code of conduct, which helps us to to be able to say to investigate when there is a sort of misunderstanding.
That in itself is probably quite a good indicator of how low the risk actually is in reality, isn't it? You've got 26,000 members. I mean, I know it's probably tends to be people who want to contribute anyway, but like you say, some of these things come up, and maybe it's, in talking through these issues and understanding different perspectives that we develop toleration. Like you say, intergenerational tolerance, that people have different mindsets for very good reasons, they come from different backgrounds and different times and different, there are differences between people, aren't there? And actually being able to be tolerant of each other, even when people don't have exactly the same views as you, is probably, again, an important part of being social, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think there's a, I did some work maybe 15 years ago with I think making a short documentary about
your films. Was this your
juvenile detention centre, I think. And there was this just incredibly inspiring education leader, and he took the young people surfing that you'd like, and climbing, and lots of things that were high risk, sort of ostensibly. And his argument was always, what's the risk of us not doing these things?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it?
And I think it was just extremely powerful. It's like, you've got a high risk of reoffending. You've got high risk of, lots of things going wrong. So it just slightly shifts your thinking. This might shake that up, right? If we give people these extraordinary and different experiences, it might shake things up. But I suppose in the Good Gym context, what it makes me think is this has got to be proportional, right? With the older people, particularly that we're supporting, it's likely that they're in a really difficult position where they are likely less mobile and not able to leave the home independently. So that is an extremely risky situation to be in. So we will do our best to make sure that it is safe, and that the person that we send round understands and is a really great person. But there also is the situation on its own is risky, and you need to keep that in sort of in proportion. I also think similarly with our work, if we've got 1,000 people going out this week with spades, the chances that something bad happens with a spade is quite high, and that doesn't necessarily mean.
I really appreciate that, Ivo. I think there's a bravery in entrepreneurs like yourself that is balancing up that risk that sometimes we're not so good at doing. And I do really appreciate that people like you stick your neck out and go, well, actually, there's more of a risk if some of us don't do things like that. We don't create opportunities for people to be social and mix together. And let's hold that risk to, there's a risk, but let's hold it.
And I mean, I think we're
coming towards the end of time, actually, because it's amazing how quickly it goes. But I wanted to make sure you've got opportunities to sort of, perhaps just tell us where the direction of Good Gym is going, and maybe if there's anything you'd like people to know about how they could join in, or
we would love. I mean, we want this to be a kind of default alternative to the gym, and to be a brilliantly supportive I suppose fitness community. We would love more social prescribing referrals. We are it should be a really positive and inclusive welcome. We run, walk and cycle, so we were trying to focus on active travel and making it easy for people to get involved at the level that they feel comfortable in
so it's
doing
not just
so.
running, not just
So
running,
not just running. You're very welcome to walk. We do want it to be sort of local, so we don't want people having to be going a long way or driving. But we're most of the urban areas in England shortly. We'll be starting in Scotland, which is exciting. But so and if we exist in your area, we'd love that sort of that referral to happen. We also like I think these things work best when there is that kind of connection, that someone understands it. I think and that you feel like you are sort of passed over to sort of the group in a way that's not just go and look up this website, if you know what I mean. So if you have ideas about how we can improve that sort of connection and relationship and make sure that it does really feel like you are being personally invited to join your first session, then we'd love to do that. And I think Good Gym has also been very happy to support someone specifically with their first session, making sure that you get someone who's going to say Ollie, welcome, and make sure that you are sort of looked after on that first session.
And that's as a participant, doing the exercise, if you like, but also then as as one of the coaches.
Yes.
You'd be looking for people to identify people who would benefit from that, or do you have a waiting list of people that are waiting for runners or walkers or cyclists to come to them?
We generally are looking for those referrals to. If you go to our website, I can send you the link if it's helpful. You can put in the
100%,
notes. But you can check if we're operating in your area and how many people that we have verified and ready to go, so that you're not filling in the information if nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, you're in 68 areas across England and Wales now, so it's quite likely there'll be a Good Gym near you somewhere.
Yeah, I hope so. So it's still urban areas, so it's not so not everywhere, but hopefully one not too far from you.
Yeah, well, I certainly see lots of red GoodGym T-shirts around Sheffield, and it's certainly throughout cities I've seen in South Yorkshire.
Oh, good.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you, Ivo, for sharing your insights, and thank you for your energy and your enthusiasm and your bravery to do what you do. I just think I love the way you are shifting. You're reframing exercise, aren't you, from a sort of isolated, perhaps self-improvement thing to a to more community contribution with a purpose. You're participating, whether you're exercising or whether you're the coach that's also encouraging someone along, and and equally you're part of a group of people that hold each other accountable and sharing the social side. It's fantastic. Any last things you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just we'd also love anyone listening to come and have a go. Everyone is welcome, and hopefully you'll have meet some great people, have a lot of fun, and also get something really positive done for a brilliant community project in your area.
Fabulous, lovely. Well, we'll certainly put the link to the website in the GoodGym, in our show notes. But like you say, actually, maybe the best thing to do is look out for someone that's doing it, and talk to people who's out there doing GoodGym. How's it going? What are you enjoying about it? It's that word of mouth is often as strong as directing you to digital resources, isn't it? But Ivo, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat. Really appreciate that.
No problems. Really, really great to speak, Ollie, and hope you have an amazing rest of your time in Sri Lanka and learn some very exciting new moves.
Yeah, I'll be cooling down in a minute. Brilliant. Thanks, Ivo.